thank you everybody for attending today. So over the past couple days, you guys have heard phrases like expectation economy, experience economy. When looking at these devices and some of these experiences that we're talking about on content, what I really see it as is if you build the right experience, then you'll meet the expectation. And that's really part of what this new digital economy is going to look like. And we see these two devices as kind of the evolution in that, where you have an at-home experience and it's powered by a digital assistant that in the future could literally be somewhere else and doesn't have to be in the physical technology. And are really things that you should be looking at, especially when there are headlines like Amazon Echo is not just a speaker, it's a whole new way of life. Or Google Home, it's not Amazon Echo, as these guys seem to like to battle with each other. It's the future of home automation. So it's really about how can we take these solutions and make people's lives less complex and helpful and build that brand trust with them. Alexa, ask future of Internet of Things.
I'll see you guys.
Business Insider projects. There will be 34 billion devices connected to the Internet by 2020, up from 10 billion in 2015. Internet of Things devices will account for 24 billion, while traditional computing devices, for example smartphones, tablets, smartwatches, etc. will comprise only 10 billion. Wow, I am getting popular. Okay, Google, is Google Home better than Amazon Echo?
Microphone on.
Well, typically what happens when we've done this throughout the sessions today, it doesn't respond. And the reason it doesn't respond is these first generation technologies, they still have some hiccups in them. And that's what they're kind of working through right now. And so the big piece in all of this is if you're looking at expectation economy and experiences economy, we talk about that, you're only going to have one opportunity before this thing doesn't become part of your ecosystem anymore. You're going to go right to your tablet, you're going to go right to your phone because you asked it one question and it didn't help you. So I think over the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to find when I do ask one of these devices a question, the other one will be able to answer it because they know that potentially people might be using multiple devices at the same time. Why is that so important? $6 trillion is being invested in IoT solutions, which include these home devices, by Amazon, Google, and Microsoft over the next 5 years. And the whole idea is really creating a more productive, more efficient, easier, and happier life for people using IoT as the basis of that. So, welcome to IoT and Digital Assistants, driven by voice search. Is your brand ready for the next wave of disruptive marketing? I'm Steve Beatty, head of Owned Media.
And I'm Jeremy Hull. And the first place you have to look when you're understanding what these devices mean and what the implications are is it's actually not so much about the technology. It's fun to dig into the technology, to see the two battle it out, to see who's going to integrate with more things or more home devices. But far more important than that is the behaviors that this technology enables. The primary way to interact with these devices is via voice, the primary way. And that completely changes the game. We've gone from talking to a computer in the language that it understands to speaking comfortably and having the technology meet us and come to us. I was out at Google last week, and they had posters all over the Partnerplex. And the posters were kind of motivational reminders. And they said, it's not our job to teach people how to understand computers. It's our job to teach computers how to understand people. That is what voice means. And again, it's not about the device, it's about the behavior that the device unlocks and making sure that everything that we're doing from a marketing standpoint or from a technology standpoint is based around that behavior. Understanding the new ways that people are behaving because voice enables them to interact and providing value. I'll tell a story of exactly how voice can absolutely change behavior. I have a friend named Neil. He's not here, so I can tell this story. Voice has tangibly improved his marriage because he always had to be the search guy. Whenever any internet search needed to happen in his house, he had to do it because when his wife would sit down at the computer, she would sit down and she would try and type some words, and it would, no matter how good the search engine was, no matter which search engine she used, she never could find quite what she wanted. It was because her brain just wasn't wired in the way to pick out the right words or the right synonyms or the right combination to find the answer she was looking for. So she would sit there and she would be typing in searches. She'd get frustrated. She'd call Neil in and say, Neil, you have to do it. And he'd sit down, and his brain works that way, so he'd get it the first try, which would only make her a little more annoyed. So his solution was, a few months ago, he told her, hey, stop typing things in. Don't use the box, don't use the keyboard, only use voice. So because of that, she didn't have to think of what she wanted and then translate it into a bunch of little keywords. She could just have a natural conversation, and that removed him having to solve for her because the technology came and met her where she was looking to engage with it. So again, talking about behaviors, let's bring up some uncomfortable memories. Let's think back to the mobile disruption. Nobody got mobile right in the early days. And when I say nobody, I mean nobody. I mean agencies, I mean brands, I mean giant tech companies totally missed the mark for years. Some of them are still recovering from it. I'd argue the only company that quickly solved the mobile problem was Facebook, because they'd just gone public, their stock was taking a beating, and so they were very motivated to figure out mobile. The reason that so many people took so long to figure out mobile is they focused on the wrong thing. They focused on this. Got to solve for this, got to make something that's compatible with this, got to build something based on this, instead of focusing on the person using it and realizing that it's not just a new device, it's a new kind of behavior. And so we want to make sure we don't repeat those past mistakes. We don't want to just focus on the technology, that's important, but we want to focus on the people behind the technology and how they're using it. Now, the coolest thing about voice as a way to interact is it actually unlocks the internet for a lot more people in a lot more ways. I already told you about my buddy's wife, but let's take another slice. Let's look at voice activity by age. So the question is, the comment is, I do use voice or digital assistants on my devices. Here are the people that said yes, broken down by age. 18 to 26-year-olds, 66% of them. That's not a big surprise there, all right? Those are the people that are the early adopters. If you ask any tech question, typically they're going to skew very, very high. What I find utterly fascinating about this chart is typically when you're talking about early tech adopters or you're talking about new tech, there's a pretty rapid fall off. With this one, it actually levels out. I'm just going to skip straight over to this end. 60 to 70-year-olds and 71 plus, nearly 40% of them are using voice on their devices. Now think about that. The reason behind that is it's not a new behavior you have to learn. It's not a new technology you have to unlock. It is the technology coming to you and making it easier for them to interact in ways that they haven't been able to before. And it's moving really, really fast. This next chart, the question is, when did you first start using voice commands? The vast majority, less than 6 months. So this is still early days, and it's growing incredibly rapidly. So it's really critical that we listen to what that unlocks for us across all of the channels that we operate in. When we think about paid search, there's a very, very tangible thing that we've already begun doing. When people search, people search using typing, they're using keywords. And we like keywords in paid search. When they search using talk and voice, they speak in entire sentences. Now this is incredibly valuable because when they're speaking in entire sentences, their wants and needs are much more clearly expressed. Keywords, we have to infer those. And keywords are usually just small chunks of text. And sometimes they don't even make much sense. Back in my early days, I made an Excel macro that was called the keyword permutations macro. And it took all of your keywords that had multiple words in them, and then it created other versions that were rearranged. So if there's 3 words, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2. Because people would search with the weirdest combinations of stuff. And that was great because you could capture more traffic, but the hard part was figuring out what did they mean when they switched those words around. And so that was kind of challenging. With voice, we can skip right through that and get exactly to what they mean because they're telling us. So what we're doing is we're building out longer tail keywords in our search campaigns. We don't just want to capture these voice searches using broad match on a couple of those keywords. We're building out keywords that are the entire query so that we're able to capture this traffic not just at a better CPC, but with a better, more relevant response when people are searching. So let's take a look at the players in the space. These are the 4 primary digital assistants. You've got Siri, you've got Cortana, you've got Alexa, and you've got Google Assistant. 2 major takeaways from this. One, for some reason, they all use circles on their logo. I don't know exactly why that is. I think Google is going with the theory of more circles equals more better. I don't know. The second one is that for some other reason, all of these have a female voice. Now, I'm not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole. That's for someone else to dig into and solve. But for the purposes of today, we're going to focus this talk on the 2 assistants that have the connected home Internet of Things device already in the marketplace today. That's Google Assistant on Google Home and Alexa on Amazon Echo.
So when we start to look at this expectation experience and kind of digital economy, you can really see where they can plug in right away to an audience they already have. with 63 million Prime members where they're already inside of that ecosystem of shopping and behavior of looking for things. They're not that far removed from taking all 63 million people and putting them on an Echo because it's going to simulate the same experience that you're already doing anyways. I think the more interesting thing is the number of skills, and that they've built 10 times as many. They started off at 1,000. They're already to 10,000 as of February 2017. And some of the brands that are doing it now are a little bit outside of that tech space where you'd see Uber building a tech app for an Echo experience. Sure, you would expect that. But when you start looking at these other ones, Diageo with Johnny Walker created a sipping experience you can use voice for. It'll recommend whiskey for you as well. And it'll also recommend a local store where you can go buy the whiskey nearby. So you're creating this transaction with engagement and then influence for them to potentially go in store as well. Domino's is another great example. You can just buy a pizza by saying buy a pizza. With the Genesis one in the car, you can start your car from inside of your house. In Capital One, you can actually do banking with just voice, which are the creative ways, and you're solving problems for people by using these types of content solutions is really what you should be looking to do as brands. For the next piece.
I'd like to welcome our guest presenter.
Yes. Alexa, news flash briefing.
Here's your flash briefing. In Amazon Echo News, the adoption and purchasing of the Amazon Echo has seen tremendous growth over the last 2 years. Amazon recently reported that saw potentially 9 times as many sales of the Echo as compared to 2015 through the holiday season. You can see from Steve's graph the Amazon Echo's year-over-year growth from 2.5 million to an estimated 10 million shows how widely adopted the device is becoming. The Amazon Echo has seen huge growth in terms of developers building skills for the device. From the beginning of 2016 to February of 2017, the skills in the Alexa App Store grew 10 times. From 1,000 in the start of 2016 to 10,000 by February of 2017. Woohoo, I am definitely gaining ground with consumers. However, I do still have room to grow, as only 1/3 of all my skills have reviews.
Alexa, stop. Obviously, I listen to NPR News. One of the biggest things to highlight in this is the 1/3 of skills have a review. Anybody want to take a guess why that is? Only 1/3 have reviews. Right. So why is that? Because people are just building it. They are not building a good experience. So there's no value in that. And back to Jeremy's point about mobile disruption, that's exactly what happened when mobile came out. Everybody built a mobile experience, but most of them sucked. So you can't take that approach. You have to build a good experience because in this economy with expectation experience, they're going to expect that. And if you don't deliver it, you're probably going to lose them.
How much of that is also findability of skills? Because I feel like it's difficult to find something, just a huge list of whatever.
So that's a great point. And what I've seen a lot of other brands do to combat that is they're building sections of their website to promote that, as well as how you can enable it with voice actions, videos to show people step by step how to use it, and promoting it in other manners through paid search, through organic content. It's really just your standard marketing strategy of promoting it from within your organization as well as externally, and I think that's the best way to do so. So what you guys just heard right there was an actual news application, or excuse me, a news skill that we built at iProspect, and that's part of this whole news briefing that we can do for other clients. We've actually been working with Amazon now for the past 6 months. We've got some developers in their cycle now where they're actually working with them. So there are approaches we can take with consulting or building. Obviously, if you're looking for more of the complex solution, that's actually building out a skill, which is an application. That's a longer cycle, and I know development cycles for a lot of people in the room are probably different, so that's where we could work with you on that. The one huge advantage of building the skill is you can attach analytics to it, so you can actually track it and put attributes around it so you understand what people are doing in the behavior. I know Google Analytics works with it, SiteCat, and I believe Core Metrics does as well. So there's a lot of potential here that you should be looking at, and obviously people are engaging with these types of devices.
And if you're interested in doing that, I'll reiterate what Steve said. Not only, as you just saw, can we build news briefings for you based on the content you already have, but we actually have a team of developers that can either consult about how to build the best skill or just do a soup to nuts implementation, partnering with you to identify the use case, and then coming back, building, launching, amplifying the skill.
So when we look at who's winning, this is a great experience that I found that I actually use myself. The Guardian does a really good job of giving you headline news, creating a podcast, but then they also have categories. You can call out those categories of content like sports, local news, politics. And what it does is you're able to access that content versus just having to listen to it, read off a bunch of voice content. You can choose, and I think that flexibility offers a better experience. So if you are looking to do the news experience, that's kind of the route you should build around what they're doing. And clearly this stat proves the point of 62% of American consumers own at least one Internet of Things connected device. So if you look from one of our first slides, there's the Microsoft one, there's the Google Home, and there's Amazon Echo. Microsoft's not in market, so somebody either owns a Google Home or they own that Amazon Echo experience, and this is a great way to connect with them through a content experience. So the more complex route, as Jeremy talked about a minute ago, is actually building out the skill. Johnny Walker did a fabulous job here, and I know I mentioned this before, where you can look up recipes. It tells you about sipping and the best way to sip different types of Johnny Walker. It also has a 101 on whiskey, so you can learn about whiskey and maybe what you want to buy, and then it gives you that local experience so you can go in store. So you've got engagement and then influence to transaction, which I think is the optimal model to build if you really want to create a good experience for consumers.
And that's a pretty robust skill. Now, one of the things I want to make sure that don't get scared and don't feel like you have to build a skill that does absolutely everything under the sun. Some of the best skills focus on meeting a need and making people's lives easier. I'll go back to that Domino's pizza skill. If you install the Domino's pizza skill, you can do exactly two things with it, all right? You can reorder the last pizza you ordered, or you can order whatever you've labeled as your favorite order. They didn't build this big conversation tree asking what kind of crust you want or trying to upsell you on hot wings or add breadsticks to the order, whatever. They just said, we're going to make it simple. You can either, hey, send me the same pizza you got last time or send me my favorite pizza. And because of that, that's how you make it sticky. That's how you keep people engaging, because you keep it simple and you simplify their life. So now let's take a look at Google Home. So Google Home was second to market. But the interesting thing about Google is, in some ways, they actually weren't, because the device was second to market, but the infrastructure that powers it has been around for a long time, integrated into Android devices, integrated into the Google app, integrated into their search experience. And what the advantage that Google has is they have all these pieces of the infrastructure that they've started tying together, from Chromecast to YouTube to search to Gmail. All of these pieces are being tied together and then funneled through and powering this new entry point of Google Home.
So you may have heard me or one of my colleagues talk about voice search. We've done that over the last couple summits and said, voice search, build it, build content in voice search. Use SEO to build content in voice search, optimize for voice search. Why? This is the perfect example of why. This Google Home device is powered by voice search content that brands have to build. So as an example, okay Google, what is Carter's return policy?
According to Carter's, any item purchased at a company-owned Carter's or Oshkosh B'gosh retail or outlet store, along with eligible Carter's or Oshkosh B'gosh items purchased online, may be returned or exchanged to any company-owned Carter's or Oshkosh B'gosh retail or outlet store in the U.S. Make sure to take your original sales receipt.
So, helpful content. There's also informational. If you take away any statistic from this whole presentation today, that is probably the most important one. And as we've talked about experience, expectation economy, 57% of parents say the #1 thing they want from an IoT is to make their lives easier. And that should be put on a big bulletin board. If you're going to build something, do that, and you'll add value.
Now, the big burning question is, what does advertising look like in this format? All right, are you ready for the answer? Nobody knows yet. And I'm not just saying us, nobody has figured it out. Google and Amazon are all doing trials. Google did that Beauty and the Beast thing a few weeks ago that wasn't an ad. My theory is because no one paid for it. But it was exactly the format. They were putting it out there to test and see what response was. Response was a little negative. So the first forays into this have been on mobile devices. If you do a search using voice versus typing it in, a few times you will get, occasionally, especially if you're doing near me, you'll get different promoted results. I think this is Google playing around with the different intent that voice might target. And then beyond that, conversational commerce. So this is where Amazon kind of has a leg up because they've already started doing this. Google has just recently started testing conversational commerce using Google Express. So if you're not familiar, Google Express is only in a few cities, only about 24 brands. But it's a way to integrate and do same-day shipping. All right, Steve, bring it home for us.
So you might be saying, wow, you know what, maybe I should be thinking about this. Maybe it should be on a roadmap in 6 months. Too late. This study was really interesting. 1,000 executives of Fortune 500 companies were polled on the IoT marketing strategy they had. If you'll see, a majority of them are mature, building, experimenting, or investigating. Waiting no plan is a very small part of this. if you're on that side of the coin, then your competition is probably beating you out in this space right now. With that said, Alexa, ask, what did you learn?
The key takeaways I found from the presentation were: build trust with consumers and you build trust with digital assistants. Secondly, ensure accuracy, white proximity, and structured data. Third, create paid voice campaigns. And last but not least, build a good experience and invest in it. And yes, I have brought the sexy back to content and data.
Steve, I don't know if you saw, but our colleagues from Amazon were in the last session, and when she said, I brought the sexy back to content and data, I saw each of them go.
Maybe that's not their brand message. All right, but that was ours for this presentation.
All right, thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot, guys.